First of all, it's going to prove to you that there is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate, an essential sugar. It's going to prove to you that you won't die. Your brain won't cease to function if you don't have daily sugars and dietary carbohydrates in your diet every meal and every day. And so that immediately that disproves so many myths that you hear out on the interwebs is, oh, your brain has to have 120 grams of carbs a day. All that's bullshit, as you know, but many people don't know that. They trust Tufts School of Nutrition. They trust Harvard School of Public Health. They trust the dietary powers that be in the UK or in Australia or in the EU, and they just blindly trust them. And we should be able to do that. But as you know, currently, you're not able to trust these associations and organizations because they're wrong about so many things. And so that lowering of the carbohydrates is going to help your fasting insulin level go back to low normal. It's going to help your blood sugar levels go back to low normal. It's going to help your hemoglobin A1C, your C-peptide, your triglycerides, all of these things go back to low normal. If you have fatty liver, it's going to reverse that in a few weeks to a few months. If you have prediabetes, it's going to reverse that in 1 to 6 months. If you have type 2 diabetes, it's going to reverse that in 3 to 12 months. And so you're going to get this almost immediate feedback from your physiology that, yes, this is the way. The carnivore is the way. This is what you need to be doing if you'd like to reverse chronic health conditions and chronic medical diseases.
Now, I have to ask this question because you went before and said polyphenols. The biggest debate in polyphenols is honey. Do you think honey is safe on carnivore or is it dangerous on carnivore? I know your answer, but you got to say it. You got to say it.
Yeah, I think that honey used sparingly and rarely is safe. I don't think there's any acute danger from ingesting honey. But we have to be very blunt about this because honey is one of the foods that has taken on magical properties, magical beliefs, right? For all humans, we all believe that some honey's somehow magical because it does seem magical. It's like, so you're telling me that bees eat pollen and then they vomit out honey and then we eat it and it tastes delicious. And then also there's these magical health benefits, right? Especially the more expensive honeys like Manuka and others. It's like, oh no, there's research that proves no, actually there's observational research that shows a possible association, but there's not a shred of research that proves that honey is in any way good for you or necessary whatsoever. Now, the sugar makeup of honey is a very high percentage of fructose. And then there is also some glucose and sucrose that comes naturally in honey. Now, one of the first things people need to understand is that honey is very, very commonly adulterated. And so either the manufacturer or the middleman can add corn syrup to the honey, and you literally have to have a biochemical lab and do thousands of dollars worth of testing to be able to detect that. Some people think they can detect it with their tongue. Maybe some few people can, but the vast majority of people, they have no idea, is this real honey or not? So that's a huge thing, especially in the United States. So I think there was a recent article that showed that well over 30% of the honey on the shelf had been adulterated. The cheaper the brand, the more likely it was to be adulterated, but even some of the more expensive brands as well. And so now let's talk about glycation. This is very, very important. Dr. Paul Saladino and I recently had a friendly debate on my YouTube channel about this.
Well, it wasn't so friendly. It wasn't so friendly, I didn't think.
Well, I tried to keep it friendly.
You were very friendly.
Paul he's completely wrong about this. And I think if you ask him now, he would admit this because the research is very clear that the tests that we do to check your hemoglobin A1C, to check for glycation, right? And so first of all, glycation is when sugars inappropriately stick to your cells and your proteins and your tissues, and it gums up how they function. It causes a decrease in function, causes an increase in inflammation, and it causes an increase in your risk for developing a chronic disease. It's very bad. You don't want to have any unnecessary amount of glycation. Now, the tests for hemoglobin A1C and the test for fructosamine, which is another way to look for glycation. Both of these tests, the manufacturers, the researchers that actually invented this test, they make it very clear that this only looks for glucose glycation. And what the test actually looks for, both the A1C and the fructosamine, and fructosamine has fruct in the name, so you would think maybe it looks for fructose glycation, but it does not. What both of these tests look for is glucose sticking to a particular amino acid, either glycine or leucine, depending on the test. That's what it looks for. And so if you're drinking lots of dairy and getting lots of galactose, galactose is 7 to 10 times more glycating, more likely to glycate than glucose. But the A1C test and the fructosamine is blind to that glycation. It cannot detect it. And so for a lot of the people out there who believe that drinking milk or raw milk is carnivore and is really good for you, and that's a health hack, you are inducing a monstrous amount of glycation in your body that neither the A1C test nor the glucosamine test can detect. So currently, there's no test you can order from Quest or LabCorp or any other lab that can detect how badly you're glycated from the galactose. The same exact thing holds true for fructose as well. Fructose is 7 to 10 times more likely to glycate, gum up, cause dysfunction in your cells and tissues and organs than glucose. And the A1C test and the fructosamine test cannot detect the glycation that is caused by fructose. And so if you want to have a teaspoon of honey in your coffee on your birthday and your anniversary and Christmas, I think that's fine. I don't think that's a big deal. But if you have been deluded into thinking that honey somehow has magical properties or that honey's really good for you and you should put some in your coffee every day and eat honey every day on purpose, you have been completely deluded. There is no research to support it, and there's ample evidence to show that you are glycating your cells and tissues to a very unhealthy degree, and the test that you would check for glycation cannot detect that glycation. And this is not up for debate. This is not my opinion. This is absolutely stated blatantly in the research that was used to get FDA approval for the glucosamine test and for the A1C test. This is not debatable. This is how the test works.
So if anyone out there has honey, Dr. Ken Berry is going to come after you. No, we're just joking. But look, no, honey is not good. We shouldn't have honey in any large frequency or quantity because absolutely, as Dr. Ken Berry said, it's not right for you.
There's been tons of research done over the decades trying to prove that coffee is bad for you, because the Seventh-day Adventists, who basically they have abducted nutrition science, they believe that coffee's bad and you should not ever drink coffee. And so you keep seeing these research articles and all that. And so, but let me sum up the totality of this, because I love coffee. And if it's bad for me, I want to know, because I will bite the bullet and stop coffee. We can't, in medical and nutrition science, we cannot even prove that coffee is bad for pregnant women. We cannot prove that it's bad for young children. Like literally, you cannot, there is no research proving that it is bad. Even for people with heart failure, even for people with end-stage kidney or liver, you can't prove it's unhealthy or bad. So there's that, number one. Next is, how many people around the world drink coffee? Virtually all of them, right? So if it were truly unhealthy, truly bad, we would see a big signal in the observational data. It wouldn't be a 1.15 hazard ratio. It would be a 10 or a 12 hazard ratio. And we'd go, oh my God, we really need to do some controlled research on that. That looks really bad. That's how we figured out that cigarette smoking was bad for us, is because in the observational research, the hazard ratio was 20 or 30 or 200, not 1.18, right? And so it was such a signal in the observational data, we were like, shit, that's really bad. We need to investigate that with controlled studies. And now we know with definitively smoking cigarettes is bad for you. Don't do that. But so billions of people drink coffee or tea every single day. Now, coffee and tea have caffeine, but they also have hundreds, if not thousands, of other polyphenols. And are polyphenols good or bad for us? I don't think we know the answer to that yet, but there could be some polyphenols that are good for us. Well, guess how I get my polyphenols? I get them from drinking coffee. Coffee is one of the richest sources of polyphenol. And so if anybody still believes in the polyphenol argument, drink coffee every day. You'll get thousands of polyphenols in just the right dosage. But many people now believe in the carnivore community that any polyphenol, any phytochemical is by definition bad for you. Well, I would ask my brothers and sisters in the carnivore community, is there any definitive evidence proving that the polyphenols in coffee are bad for you? I don't think so. I haven't seen it. If there is, I would love to see the research. Send me a link ASAP on my Twitter. Send me a link on my Instagram, because I'd love to see that definitive research concluding that coffee is been shown to cause the following thing, because I don't think that exists. I think these people are using the same observational data that people used to show that meat was bad. And so I wouldn't bet the farm on that. Now, I've done a 90-day no caffeine experiment. I've done a 30-day no coffee experiment. I noticed two things. First of all, I had some withdrawals. Yes, caffeine is habit forming. There's 100%. I don't think anybody argues that it's not. But you can, just like tobacco, just like alcohol, you can break that addiction. It sucks for a few days. You have a headache. You feel kind of tired for a few days. I weaned it down very slowly, so I didn't have severe symptoms. Yes, it's habit forming. There's no doubt about that. Does that mean that by definition that makes it bad? I don't think we know that for a fact. I have since reintroduced coffee and caffeine back into my diet. I can't tell any benefit of not drinking coffee. I can't tell any benefit of drinking coffee. Literally no difference in my overall health, mentally or physically. So then I get to default back to, I freaking love coffee. Therefore, I'm going to have a cup or two of coffee a day. But there's all these arguments, and I think that's a good thing. I don't think that's bad.
So I know what people are going to be thinking, that we hear two sides of the story, especially for carnivores. And I did an interview with Dr. Anthony Chafee 2 weeks ago. I'm sure you know his stance with Dr. Chafee.
Sure.
And he's anti-coffee because it's a plant toxin. There was over 500 comments on that video saying, I love my coffee, love my coffee, love my coffee. Mm-hmm. What's your opinion of Dr. Chafee's thoughts about coffee?
So a very important concept when you start talking about human nutrition, human physiology, human health, is you have to understand this thing called the normal distribution curve. And this applies to every single facet of mammalian physiology, including humans. And so on this normal distribution curve, over on this side are people who are so unaffected by the phytonutrients and polyphenols in coffee or anything else. They could drink a gallon of coffee a day at bedtime. They're not going to be affected at all in any negative way that they can detect. The vast majority of people in the fat part of this normal distribution curve, these people, if they drink a little coffee, they literally have no negative effect whatsoever. If they drink too much coffee, they might get jittery or have insomnia. But if they have a cup or two in the morning, it's literally nothing. It's a nothing burger. Then over on this side of the curve, there are people that if they drink any coffee at all, they're going to have an inflammatory response, either in their gut, their skin, their joints. They're going to have severe insomnia. They may be slow metabolizers of caffeine. So even that morning cup of coffee, they're not going to be able to sleep that night as well. There are many, like I said earlier, there are thousands of polyphenols in a cup of coffee. It's not just the caffeine. There's also theobromine, theophylline, and thousands of other polyphenols, phytonutrients or phytotoxins, phytochemicals, right? However you want to phrase it. But some people are very sensitive to those. So for the vast majority of people, I don't think that coffee's a toxin. I don't think coffee's a poison. But how are you going to know that if you don't do the 30 days? And so even though I love coffee and I'm going to drink it, I've done my 30 days. of no coffee. I've done my 90 days of no caffeine, right? So I know for a fact with my N equals 1 experiment that I'm not over here on this part of the curve. I'm somewhere between here and here. Coffee does not bother me. Now, if I have coffee after 2 p.m., I'm not going to sleep. And I know that. So I have 2 cups in the morning and that's it. I don't touch it the rest of the day. So now Nisha, my wife, my beautiful wife, she can drink a double espresso at bedtime in bed and then go to bed and sleep like a baby. I don't know if she's a fast metabolizer or if it just doesn't affect her. It does not bother her sleep whatsoever. And she's had the ring, she's got the watch. We track our sleep. So I'm not just speaking out of my ass here. We track this stuff. It doesn't affect her. She's over here. She's one of these people, right? Is it because she has Puerto Rican heritage? I don't know. I'm a white boy. I'm a redneck. And so I know that if I have too much coffee, I'm going to pay for that later in the day. But I think there are many people who can have a cup or 2 of coffee a day and it's literally inconsequential to their overall health. And then let's finish with this, Rena. It's very easy to major in a minor. And what I mean by that is you get all up in arms about caffeine or coffee and ignore all the honey you're eating every day or ignore all the milk you're drinking every day. So you got this huge 80% problem that's harming your health definitively. Inarguably, you drink a quart of raw milk a day and you're eating, a half cup of honey a day. You are destroying your health, but you're over here pissed off and arguing about coffee. You need to stop that, okay? Coffee is at worst a 20% problem, but for the vast majority of people, I think it's probably a 1 or 2% problem. It's not a big deal. It's not a major problem. It's a minor problem, but you're over here majoring in this minor while you continue to harm your health. And we all are liable to do that. We're all susceptible to that if we blindly believe any guru, any authority, any influencer, any regulatory body, any university. If you blindly believe and follow anyone, you're liable to fall into that trap. And so that's why I've said hundreds of times on social media, do not blindly believe me about anything. Do your own experiment, do your 30 days, do your 90 days. Then you absolutely know definitively, is it a yes or no for you? Is it a major problem for you or is it a minor problem for you? You've got to be thinking, you've got to be reading, you've got to be doing your N equals 1 experiments, or you'll never know your true answer. You're just blindly following this guy or this chick, and you don't know shit about shit in the ultimate reality of the situation.
What do you think of supplements?
So depending on where you live in the world, how much sun you get, if you have access to seafood or not, there are a few supplements that may be absolutely vital for you, right? There are places on the interior of the large continents of the world that are considered Gorder belts. There's just not enough iodine in the soil. And so if you live too far from a coastline of a saltwater ocean or sea or lake, there's not going to be any iodine in the soil. And so indeed, back in World War I, this is why the United States started to put iodine in salt. They convinced the manufacturers to do that because there were so many 17, 18, 19-year-old young men from the middle of our continent who had a huge goiter because they had no iodine in their diet, so they couldn't be drafted or they couldn't enlist in military service. And so they started to put iodine in the salt for that very reason. And that's true of any continent on the planet. If there's not a source of iodine near you, you probably need to supplement iodine. And I've got several videos on my YouTube channel about iodine because it's super, super important to overall health and optimization. It's not just for your thyroid. Every cell in the human body that's ever been studied has a sodium iodine symporter, which is a little machine on the cell membrane that pulls iodine actively into the cell. Cells don't do that. They don't waste that energy unless that cell needs the iodine. So iodine's a big one. Now, if you're eating seafood several times a week, you don't need to supplement iodine, right? The next one is vitamin D. If you live at a latitude where you can get ample vitamin D, and very importantly, and if you run around outside with enough skin exposed, so you can get the vitamin D, so you can make the vitamin D from your cholesterol, then you don't need to take a supplement. And so here in Tennessee in the winter, I'm outside in my short sleeves or with my shirt off and my shorts. I get plenty of vitamin D. I don't take a supplement during the summer. But in the late fall, the winter, and the early spring, there's no way at this latitude to get enough vitamin D from the sun. So I eat vitamin D rich foods. I've got a YouTube video about that if anybody doesn't know what those are. And I take a vitamin D K2 supplement during those months where I can't get enough vitamin D from production from sunlight. And so I think everybody should be worried about that. If you live at a northern enough latitude or a southern enough latitude, you're not getting the UV radiation that you need to produce vitamin D. You need to take a supplement. Another one that maybe older carnivores need to think about is coenzyme Q10 or ubiquinol. As you get older, you tend to make less. It does many, many very important things in the body. Now, I think that carnivores are going to have a higher CoQ10 level in their blood than people eating a crap diet. But is it high enough? I don't think we know from the research yet, because there's not enough carnivore diet research out there to know. Does it raise it high enough? For some people, a carnivore diet raises their testosterone levels for men anywhere from 50 to 400 points. And so many men who are considering TRT, thyroid replacement therapy, if they just went carnivore, that's free. They just start making the testosterone again and all the benefits that come with that, gentlemen. Some guys, they just, even though they're strict carnivore, they still need, you could call it a testosterone supplement. They need TRT to get it up where they feel their best. Same goes for women and testosterone and progesterone. Some women, when they go carnivore, their levels go to beautiful, optimal. Others, they need to supplement with some bioidenticals just to get it up where it needs to be so they feel their best and they don't have to act their age, because nobody wants to act their age, right? Am I right about that?
Yep, absolutely.
There are several other supplements that there could be an argument made that you may need to supplement with that, at least initially, maybe long-term, depending on where you live in the world and what some people hate seafood, right? So they're never, so therefore, if they're eating a ruminant-based diet where the cows graze in the middle of a large continent, not near any ocean, it's highly likely they're going to be deficient in iodine, because if the iodine is not in the soil, it cannot get into the grass. Therefore, it cannot get into the cow or the sheep or the goat. And although ruminants are amazing, magical creatures, they cannot perform nuclear fission or nuclear fusion. They cannot produce iodine. It's either in the soil, in the grass, or they don't have it in their body. And that's very important for people to understand.
Okay. Second last one. What would you tell new carnivores about exercise?
Yeah. So exercise is good for your body in hundreds of ways. It's good for your brain. It's good for many, many, many things. But the place where we all got diluted and confused, and that's why I talk about exercise in the way that I do, is we were convinced that exercise is a great way to lose weight, right? If you're trying to lose weight, then you need to join the gym. And the research shows very clearly that that's horseshit. Now, horseshit is a technical term we use here in the southern United States. That means it's something that people tell you to try to trick you. It's different. It's different subtly than bullshit. Bullshit's just something that's stupid. Horse shit is stupid, but they're trying to trick you with it. That's the difference in the two. And so there is no research that shows that exercising is a good method of fat loss. And so many people coming to keto and carnivore, they're 100 pounds overweight. They're 200, 300, 400 pounds overweight. You're going to tell that person to join the gym, start doing CrossFit, no, they're going to immediately injure themselves. Also, they feel like crap. They have no energy. If you tell them to exercise, what are they going to do, Raina? They're going to give up. And I'm like, well, shit, I can't do that. I can barely get off the couch. But what they can do the first day is they can fix their diet, because you can eat carnivore laying on the sofa. You can eat carnivore lying in the recliner, right? And so as you fix your diet, so this is an 80-20 problem again. 80 to 90% of the problem is your diet. Maybe 10 to 20% of your problem is you're not exercising enough. It is a problem, but it's not the 80%. So I want people, when they first come to carnivore, I want all of your effort, all of your motivation, all of your willpower, and all of your money to be spent on diet. Fix your diet. Buy the best quality meat that you can afford. If all you can afford is bologna and hot dogs and Spam, that's way the hell better than the shit you were eating before. But if you can afford better, then do better. But spend all of your resources, all of your motivation, your stick-to-itiveness, your all that on the diet. Focus on that 100% for at least the first 90 days. And then what happens, Rena, is naturally after about 90 days of carnivore, people are like, dude, I feel freaking amazing. Yeah. I think I'm going to go for a walk, go for a swim, go for a bike ride. It's like exercise is just part of our natural behavior as Homo sapiens sapien if we feel like it, if we feel good, and if we're not inflamed, and if we're not depressed, and if we're not 300 pounds overweight, we're going to go outside and play. You almost can't keep us from doing that. But if we're fat and miserable and inflamed and depressed, don't talk about exercise. That's not productive. That's not going to help them succeed. But when you fix that diet strictly enough for long enough, human beings by nature want to go outside and play. You don't have to yell at them and berate them and scold them anymore. You have to go look for them because they're outside playing.
Absolutely. Now, the last one is going to be very much like exercise, the 20% of the 80 of the 100%, fasting.
Yeah. So fasting is something that human beings have been doing. There is no debate about this. Humans have been fasting for millions of years. Every major religion if you talk about them before they tried to streamline and mainstream and become less weird, there was a huge component of fasting in every major religion without exception. Fasting was a big part of their religious practice. Now, I think there are some religious reasons for that, like, asceticism, trying to sacrifice. Yes. But there are also, it's obvious that there are health benefits from fasting. Now, this may be, when you say the word fasting, that's a very loaded word because some people think of, oh, okay, I'm just going to skip breakfast. That's my fast. I agree. That's a fast. And I think that has a beneficial physiological benefit. For other people, if you say fast, they're thinking about Ramadan. They're thinking about doing a 10-day water-only fast or a 3-day dry fast. Everybody has a different definition. I think there might be a place for all those things as part of a proper human diet. But I don't think they're mandatory. But I think that is something that people should experiment with. And what most people will find if they're eating enough fat in their carnivore diet is they're going to start to skip a meal effortlessly. They're just not even going to think about it. They'll be like, I'm busy. I don't have time for breakfast, or I'm busy. I don't have time for dinner. And they'll just start eating 2 meals a day. Many people, this goes to just 1 meal a day, and they're not trying. Because if somebody has just come to this way of eating, they're like, shit, that must be so hard. And it's like, no, you don't understand. When you're eating enough nutrient-dense, fatty meat, you don't get hungry all the time. You don't stay hungry all the time. You never get hangry. That ceases to exist in your world. And so it becomes effortless to eat 2 meals a day. And so if you eat 2 meals a day, you're fasting for 16 to 20 hours a day, every single day. And you don't even have to try. And I know for you newcomers who are still on a standard American high-carb diet, you're like, that sounds like insanity to me. What do you mean you can eat twice a day in a 6-hour window and not be hungry the rest of the day? That's impossible. It is on your current diet, but it's not on a proper human diet. It's very easy to do. I eat 1 or 2 meals a day, and it depends on family, social, travel. but either 1 or 2 meals a day, that's my standard. And I haven't eaten today, and I don't know what time it is now, but I haven't even thought about eating. Right? It's what time is it? It's
Well,
noon here. It's
midday,
noon where I'm
noon. Yeah.
at. I
Yeah.
haven't even just when I said that I've thought about eating. I haven't thought about it all day. It doesn't occur to me to eat because I'm going to go outside and play, or I'm going to talk to my beautiful friend. I'm going to do things that I enjoy doing. Food is sustenance. Food is nutrition. Food is no longer pleasure. It's still very pleasurable when I break my fast, but it's not one of the major pleasures that I crave during my day. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think for many people, especially if you're severely overweight, you probably want to employ at least daily intermittent fasting into your carnivore regimen. It's going to help you reach your goals quicker. If you have severe inflammation, you may want to do some intermittent fasting. You may even want to do a 2-day or a 3-day once every 2 weeks or once a month to help speed up your goals. If you have lots of so let's take an example. Somebody's 300 pounds overweight, Rena. It's almost impossible for that person to lose weight with calorie restriction and portion control and not have aprons of loose, saggy skin when they reach their ideal body weight, right? But what I've noticed in both the keto, the ketovore, and the carnivore community is when you're doing some degree of a daily intermittent fast and you're eating very nutrient dense food, these people, their skin shrinks to a level that it seems almost miraculous. And it's not a miracle, it's not magic, it's physiology, because they're getting the autophagy and they're getting the mitophagy from that daily intermittent fast. And so some people still, even with the intermittent fasting, they've got to go see the plastic surgeon and get the loose skin taken care of, right? But I know hundreds of people who intermittent fasting was part of their regimen, and you can't tell they were ever severely obese. You can't tell they used to weigh 400 pounds, because typically when people lose weight from that starting point, they look amazing, but you can still tell they used to be very, very overweight, right? But there are some people in this carnivore community that you literally cannot tell that they used to weigh 300, 400 pounds because they got the benefit of that intermittent fast along the way. And so I don't think intermittent fasting is mandatory, but I think if you've got certain conditions or certain body weight or certain body fat percentage, you probably ought to look into it and do your 30, 60, 90-day experiment with it. I think you'll be happy that you did.